Welcome to The Leaders Who Care, a podcast powered by Dynamis Group. We are here to give the stage and support to those committed to create a positive and lasting impact, way beyond the profits and margins, the leaders of the world who care for others and serve a bigger purpose. Join us on the journey of creating a better, more caring world. And now to your host, Maria Nemeth.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It's since we have an audience from all over the world, and we're on a mission to bring together the most caring leaders from every corner of the world. We have the privilege today to welcome a great leader and a founder and director of the Academy for Coaching Excellence, but also a leader that has served and made a profound difference in many different areas. And we're going to talk today about leadership and trust. Maria Nemeth, thank you so much for joining today and welcome. Where are you joining us from, first of all?
I'm here in Sacramento, where we are so happy because we've been in a drought situation for a couple of years, and now we're getting rain and snow. And so all the farmers are happy, Marian, and the skiers are happy. So it's a time of joy.
Fantastic. I believe a lot of joy and great things are coming to us, and 2022 will be a year of excellence and prosperity. I truly believe, despite the challenges we will face, we'll come out stronger. So it's looking forward to the great things that are happening. Maria, you have so much really experience and life wisdom, but maybe if you share a brief introduction just for the audience that don't know you, a few words about you, and how did you decide to do what you do today? How did that sparkle came around?
Well, thank you for asking. And just bottom line, just in terms of my credentials, and then I'm going to go into something more important than that. I'm a PhD psychologist, and I used to be a professor in a university here in California. I'm also a master certified coach through the International Coach Federation, and I'm the director of the Academy for Coaching Excellence, which is internationally known for training great life coaches, executive coaches, leadership coaches. But I've authored 3 books. The Energy of Money is the second book, and it seems to be very popular still. This 25 years old, Marian, and but people are gravitating toward it because it's a spiritual guide to financial fulfillment. But the most important thing is this. I believe that it is possible to have a world in which everyone is supporting each other 100% and no one is being left out. I believe in that kind of a world where we can create and sustain trust and respect and dignity. I really believe that that's true, and I'm looking toward the next generations to be able to do that. And my life really, I've worked now for over 50 years, Marian, with people.
Wow, 50
yes, I know,
years.
50 years, and you know,
Yeah,
really, and it's been such a short time. It goes by in such a flash. But I've been privileged to work with some people who are eager to have a world in which people are supporting each other and generating trust. So I've been able to develop some tools that people can use to do it. And out of that, I'm so thrilled that you invited me here today.
Well, thank you for joining. And you've touched on a very dear topic that I'm personally very interested in, and this is leadership and trust. And when it comes down to trust in leadership and organizations, in companies especially, what is the situation out there? What is the problem? What problem do you see?
Well, the problem I see primarily is that with all the changes that have happened, and I don't want to go through all the changes, but we know what we're talking about. And I know the listeners do too. People have been upset on a continual basis, and when that upset happens, our brains, one of the things I is my subspecialty is how the brain functions. And one of the things that happens, Marian, when our brain gets excited by the next crisis, the next big change, there's nowhere for us to rest. There's nowhere for us to just, land and take a deep breath. And, the brain, our brain, first thing that I want everyone to know is something that I thoroughly have observed and believe in, that you and I, we're not our brain. You have a brain. You have 2 eyes, a nose, a mouth, a brain. Your brain is an organ. You, who you are, is that which has the capacity to change your brain, to shift your brain. And we need to learn how to do that now more than ever, when our brain is continually upset, Marian, by all these crises that happen. So the most important thing I wish for are that crises and changes settle down, so that we can breathe a little and take stock of who we are and what we truly want out of life. So this is a pivotal moment for all of us.
I relate a lot when you say something like, when you have a crisis, when there is a problem, whether that's in trust, leadership, organization, or what it is, worry, your brain doesn't rest. It's like you're continuously worried, and of course that is a problem that affects everything. So the question is, how what does from your experience, you consult a lot of leaders, what do they struggle most with? Is it to rest from the problem, to find a safe space? What is your experience with leaders these days? How does over the years things have changed?
Well, I think you said it right there. Absolutely. You said it brilliantly, that there's no place to rest. No place to rest. Let me give you a quick history lesson. Very quick, okay? Science has shown recently that our brain has not changed in over 100,000 years. That means the brain that you and I have is a brain that existed 100,000 years ago. Now, let's say that you and I are part of a tribe, or we're living in a cave. Let's even say it's 50,000 years ago, okay? And you and I, we want to go out and get some food because we're hungry, okay? So we gather together and we start walking toward the mouth of the cave. Now, Marian, the minute you start, you're with me, we're 50,000 years ago. The minute you and your brain start leaving the cave, what's the first thing your brain is going to look for?
Food.
Really? What is your brain really? It's 50,000 years ago. Before food, what is your brain going to look for?
Is it safe, maybe? Safety?
Exactly. Danger.
Danger, you're right.
Predators. Is it safe? Because you see, there are 2 basic errors we can make. The first error, with due respect, is to leave the cave thinking that there is a tiger out there, and there really isn't one. And the second error is to leave the cave thinking that There's no tiger out there. It's safe. Let's just go for the food. Now, Mother Nature, Marian, would like us to make that first error 1,000,000 times. Because if we make that second error even once, I call it the type 2 error, we could get killed. That is, thinking that there's no tiger out there. Oh, it's great, there's no tiger, and there really was. So the people who thought there was no tiger out there when there really was tended to get killed off. That leaves us who imagine there's a tiger out there when there may not be. You see, that leaves us with this brain that is always looking for danger first before anything. And that, I say, is at the heart of miscommunication, lack of trust, lack of creativity. Because look at this. Our brain, when we're upset a lot, our amygdala is being energized. That's the seat of fight, flight, or freeze, okay? The minute that amygdala gets energized, it hijacks any creative centers in your brain. I mean, can you think creatively when you're anxious?
Well, I've been thinking about this a lot, and I wonder when people work under high or severe pressure, like maybe in the Second World War, I was
Yeah.
referring to, and they invented the nuclear bomb, I guess. So you think of it's probably one of the most devastating inventions that you could think of today, but that was invented under pressure. So how creative was that? I don't know. And then there's another element of the Renaissance, when a lot of multidisciplinary knowledge come into a safe place and they create abundant prosperity, and we see it's called the Renaissance. So I think I ask myself this question, and I don't know the answer. And I also believe that when you're stressed out, your creativity is significantly diminished.
Yes.
Or I don't know if it disappears. But then I question, how did they came up with the bomb? How did that happen? Under so much stress in the war times.
They probably surrounded those scientists with the optimum creative environment. So the scientists themselves may not have been so stressed, you see. And there's records of, when you really want the best out of people, what kind of environment do you put them in? And usually the ones in which they can take time out for play, for talking with each other, for just, being able to hang out together. Google and Facebook in Silicon Valley. If you go there, for example, if you go to Google and see their offices, now this was pre-pandemic, you'd see people playing ping pong. You'd see people having free food. They wanted to keep people creative and relaxed, and a lot of free-flowing information across disciplines. And so the bottom line is, for our conversation here, it's difficult to create trust when you're upset. It's difficult to create trust when the person you're speaking with is upset. And so the question becomes, what do you do about it? Because you and I, and most of the people on this planet, have brains that will look for a predator before anything else, because it was up to our survival to be able to do so. So the brain nowadays, when we hear all of this upsetting news about all the things that are happening, it goes right to us. We start hyperventilating. We become stressed, and what's going to happen to me? What's going to happen to my family? What's going to happen to my work? What's going to and the minute you start doing that, there's no room for creating conversations filled with trust, is there?
Which brings me to think, how does care and caring leadership contribute to building and developing trust?
Oh, well, I think it's at the heart of building trust. And in a moment, with your kind permission, I'm going to demonstrate what I mean about ways to create trust
Please,
that happen.
that will be fascinating to hear how to create trust in a situation, in an organization, especially how leaders can create trust. That will be fantastic to hear your thoughts on this.
Great. So if you'd like me to, I can start now, and then hello there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My computer. Okay, great. My let me just make sure that all of my perfect. Sorry, computers. I just had a momentary glitch here. So I'm going to draw something first. I want to, and I'm going to explain to those of you who are listening and cannot see what I'm drawing. I will explain exactly what I am drawing. So this was about 30 years ago, Marian, when someone asked me in one of the seminars that I was leading at our academy. They asked, Maria, you're a psychologist and you've studied the brain. Can you explain to me how it is that our brain creates our own experience of reality? Now, that was a huge question, but you know how it is when you do a lot of reading and a lot of study, and someone asks you a question, the answer begins to happen. I know that it's happened to you a lot. You've got a very, very creative mind. Someone will ask you a question, and all of a sudden you find yourself coming up with a very creative answer, and you might ask, where did that come from? And it came from all the studying that you've done, all the work that you've done in the past. And so it happened with me. I said, well, can we imagine 4 boxes? And interestingly, here, I've drawn it here.
Yeah, great.
I call it, incidentally, folks, excuse me for just a moment here. I have to adjust a speaker. It has 4 boxes, so I call it the 4-box model. Very, very, very deep, isn't it? Very deep, the 4-box model. Okay, great.
Yep.
So we have 4 boxes. Now, in the first box, box number 1, it's right here. I'm going to draw a C. So for the folks listening to me, imagine that you have 4 boxes, and box number 1 is connected to box number 2. Box number 2 then has an arrow going to box number 3. Box number 3 has an arrow going to box number 4. And box number 4 goes back to box number 1. So it's like a 4 boxes are connected it's actually almost like a circular way. But what you have here is a model for how the brain creates its experience of reality. So the first, in box number 1, we put I put a C, and that stands for conclusions. Now, our brain needs to make sense of everything around it. Our brain, really all our brain wants to do, Marian, is keep us safe. That's from the prehistoric times. But if your brain doesn't know what's going on, it goes crazy for a moment. I was once skiing, and I skied into a whiteout condition, meaning that there was snow all around me, and I couldn't see my hands. I couldn't see my skis. I didn't know, Marion, whether to keep skiing, in which case I'd bump into a tree, or to stop in case, but once someone might bump into me. Very scary. And I was panicked. And it only lasted 2 minutes, but it seemed like 2 hours. But my heart was beating. And if you had a video cam on me, you'd see someone absolutely, terrorized because my brain couldn't figure out what was going on. So our brain has to figure out what's going on in any situation. It draws conclusions. A conclusion is a way of figuring out what's going on. Whether that conclusion is correct or not doesn't matter. It gives something the brain to hang on to. Now, Marion, the minute that our brain has a conclusion and we focus upon it, goes to box number 2, folks, for those of you who are listening. The minute you focus upon a conclusion, anything, your brain will act like a Google search engine to give you evidence to prove that conclusion is correct. I put an E in that second box. So we have a C in box number 1 leading to E in box number 2. I think you can see it. Okay, good.
Yep.
And so if you want to, listen, with Google, type in any kind of a crazy something to have Google search for it. And sure enough, Google will give you evidence for it, And for us, let's say I tell you, I really don't like my co-worker, Jim. I just don't like him. That's my conclusion. And let's say you try to talk me out of it, like you're my friend, and you say, listen, Maria, Jim is just new on the job. Why don't you like him? And I say, well, he's like a micromanager. He keeps asking me all these questions. Now, you might say to me, well, Maria, are you sure he's micromanaging? Maybe he just wants to get to know you a little bit. Now, what is the first thing I'm going to do if you say that to me? Maria, I don't know if you're correct. After all, he's new. Well, the first thing I'm going to do is try to argue you out of it. I'm going to point to all the ways in which I see that he's micromanaging, even when it's not true. And the more you question my conclusion, the angrier I'm going to get, and the more evidence I'm going to give you, even if I'm having to make it up. And now I ask people, have you ever tried to win an argument by making up evidence to prove that you're correct? And, by and large, people say, yeah, it's true. Now, so evidence, whatever you focus on, folks, anything you focus on, your brain is going to give you evidence for. If I focus on that Jim is a micromanager, sure enough, my brain is going to give me evidence for it. If I focus on that Jim just wants to be helpful, my brain is going to give me evidence for that. The question becomes, what is the conclusion that I'm interested in? Now, the third. So, the evidence I'm focused on will affect my behavior, how I behave. So I put an H in box number 3, how I behave. The evidence, if I think that Jim is a micromanager, with all that evidence, I'm going to behave toward him like that is true. And then finally, how I behave is how other people will start behaving around me. So let's say I'm talking to you, Marion, about this, and
Hmm.
all of a sudden, Jim walks into the room,
Hmm.
right? And the minute he walks into the room, my question is, I'm centering this. The minute he walks into the room, my question is, do I look very friendly? I'm giving you all this evidence for how he's a micromanager. Do I look very friendly when I'm talking to you? Seriously, do I look very friendly, Jim?
No, probably
About Jim.
you will you'll behave because you made a conclusion that he's a micromanager, so you might behave with your guard on and defending yourself.
You got it. You got it. That's it, sir. And that is exactly what happens. If I think he's a micromanager, then let's say he walks into the room where I'm talking to you and he sees me. I don't look like I'm happy to see him, because we can tell when someone isn't happy to see us, can't we? Yeah. And so
Yeah.
he says, Maria doesn't look happy to see me right now. Maybe she's having a difficult time. I think I'll talk to her later. And he leaves the room. What's the next thing that I say? I'll say to you, see, he was going to try to micromanage me just now, and he knew he couldn't do it. So he left. So how others behave around me reinforces my conclusion. And so you see, this is a self-perpetuating circle. It goes on and on and on. Now the question becomes how to crack into it. Well, if I try to behave differently toward Jim, but I still see him as a micromanager, no matter how hard I try, my brain is still going to start gathering evidence that he's a micromanager.
That is it. What difference wouldn't how to change that, I guess. And
Exactly. Because I could come to you and I could say, Marion, I know that you and I are dear friends, and I know you have my best interest at heart. I've tried to behave as though Jim was not a micromanager. But you know what? It didn't work. Why? Because my brain still has the word micromanager in it. My brain is still gathering evidence that he's a micromanaging, and furthermore, he's untrustworthy, and he doesn't like me. He'll never like me. The brain makes up all kinds of evidence. The only way out of it, Marion, is to shift the focus on my conclusions. Am I willing to transform my conclusions? Because whatever my brain focuses on, it will give me evidence to prove that that conclusion is correct. So I created a tool that people can use to shift how their brain sees people. And I call it the green lens. Now, what I was just talking to you about was something I call the red lens. The red lens occurs when we say to ourselves or to other people, there's something wrong with this person. I mean, don't you ever have that feeling, you might say, what's wrong with that person? You know, they don't have a clue. I do. And it's my job to fix them. I've got to fix them in some way. And
I like the sound of it, the green lens, because even as kids, when you put the different types of glasses, you see the world differently.
Yes.
It could be slightly greener, bluer, the yellow, more bright, and
exactly.
it makes a difference. So tell
I'll
us
tell
about
you
the green lens. Yeah, how
I'll
does it
tell
work
you.
and how?
Yes. The reason I was giving you red lens conclusions is I was wanting to, really depict to our audience how easy it is for our brain to go into red lensing. Especially if you come away from a conversation thinking, boy, that person is a drain on me. They really drain me. That's what I call a red lens conclusion. Now, that's a green lens conclusion. Let's consider that lenses, like a green lens, is not really green, Marian. It is a lens that filters out all other colors and just allows green in. And so too, when we focus on a conclusion, the brain disallows or doesn't focus on anything else but that conclusion. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Great masters have known this. Wisdom teachers have known this throughout the ages. That whatever you train your brain to focus on, folks, your brain will give you evidence for. So I said to myself, Marian, I said, there are people I admire, people in whose presence there is a sense of trust and goodwill, and the sense that all is well. So instead of saying, how did they behave? I started asking, how did they see people? Because how they saw people affected the evidence, it affected their behavior, and that it affected people around them. So I call it the green lens. And for everybody here, this is the green lens. And I'm going to read it out to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to tell you how to get a hold of this yourself if you'd like to. But let me go through it with you.
Mm-hmm.
So number 1 on the green lens says, this person is a hero, whole and complete. Now, I got that from a fellow by the name of Joseph Campbell, who was he was a historian, a mythologist, a great thinker. And he said, the extent to which you and I can see ourselves as heroes on a journey is the extent to which we have a sense of meaning. And George Lucas took Joseph Campbell on and as his mentor. And he was noted as saying, if it wasn't for Joseph Campbell, I never would have gotten the Star Wars trilogy off the ground. Because Joseph Campbell believed so strongly that we all are heroes, which is why we love heroes, because it speaks to us in our own heart, you see. And what if I saw everybody was a hero on their hero's journey? And whole and complete is a very interesting thing. It means there's nothing wrong with this person. If someone, Marian, if someone that I am leading is not successful in what they're doing, there's nothing wrong with them. It just means they have not yet acquired certain success skill sets. And if I can see that in other people, you see, I don't take into account, I don't do this diagnosis of them. I see them as needing skill sets, but there's nothing wrong with them. The second is this person has goals and dreams and a desire to make a difference. And I got that from Mother Teresa. You know, when she opened up her missionary in Calcutta, she would work with the people who were dying, who were just left by the wayside. You know, no one related to them at all. And she would take them in, and she wanted them to know once, at least once, before they died, that there was someone who saw them and they made a difference in someone's life. She wanted them to end their life that way. Now, when it comes to the workplace, let's spread this out. People don't leave our employment usually because they don't like the salary or they don't like the hours. The reason they usually leave is because they don't have a sense that they're making a difference, that their presence counts for something. And that's usually because of something that they've gotten into with a direct supervisor. So if you can have a direct supervisor using the green lens with people, you see, they can draw out the best from the person they're leading, and the person is more likely to stay. And this is
if you see them as heroes, and if you see them as people that are complete and that have goals, your attitude changes. You radiate that.
Yeah,
You know,
you
it's
do.
like
It changes your behavior. It's the 4 boxes. The next, this person has their own answers. Now, what we mean by that, I got this from looking at great teachers. You know, what makes a teacher great is not how much information they can give someone, but how they can draw out the person's wisdom, how they can encourage that person actually to draw out their own wisdom. Because when people are in an environment of acceptance, you see, and when they begin to trust, then they can look for answers. You know, if they're very scared, they can't access answers for themselves. But if I see that, you know, there was a movie out called Stand and Deliver. It's about a teacher who went to East Los Angeles, and a very poor school. And there were some boys in a class that were very bad at math. And he, out of his teaching them, he drew out their genius, and they became, I think it was the US champions in a certain math contest.
wow.
He believed they had their own answers, you see.
Wow, just that belief made a profound change. So that means you can actually. Does it mean you can train or help anyone, Maria?
Well, my answer is yes, with conditions. The question, of course, becomes what was your relationship with them prior to adopting the green lens, you know? But we can go on to that later.
Sure.
I'd love to. The fourth one, this is interesting. The fourth point on the green lens, folks, is this person is contributing to me right now. I got that from Nelson Mandela.
Yeah,
You know,
I really honor Nelson Mandela for what he did. Really, he's done some
you know,
fantastic.
it was interesting because, you know, he was in prison for 27 years.
Wow.
And they had to give him new guards every 3 months or so. Why? Because they ended up liking him. Why? Because he saw how they were contributing to him. And in this movie, Invictus, you can see, it was the life of Nelson Mandela. You can see him being so excited to be around this soccer team. He was even more excited to be around them than they were to be around him, because they were really contributing to him, their bravery, their courage. Now, what if I saw that the person I'm working with is contributing to me in some way? And then the fifth part of the green lens is this person deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. And I got that from the Dalai Lama, for whom everyone has a Buddha nature and deserves to be treated with dignity and respect. Now, the green lens, I've taught this to thousands of people worldwide. Some of them really great leaders in business. And one multinational corporation, out of all the things that they were taught in terms of how to communicate with people that they were leading, the thing that they said made the biggest difference was the green lens. Because when you train your brain, Marian, to collect evidence that this is true, it's going to affect your behavior, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I'm just thinking practically, how could we implement, if you're a leader of an organization or a team, what are the steps? How can you implement the green lens? And let's say you have multiple managers that lead, especially in large organizations that they may have hundreds of managers, and I know often the key to succeeding or to making a difference is getting the mid-level managers to buy into this, to really make a difference.
Yeah.
So where do you start from that, and how do you create that process?
I've started at two levels almost at once. You first have to have the leader agree, so you train the leader in the green lens, and ask, would it be okay with you if we trained your middle managers in how to create trust? Because folks, the product, what happens when you practice the green lens, people start relaxing in front of you. They see that you are on their side. You're in their corner. You're not there to punish them or belittle them in any way. That you're treating them with dignity and respect. And the minute they see that, and this is box number 3 of the 4 boxes, in your presence, because you're behaving in accordance with the evidence that you're gathering about them, in your presence, they start to relax. And over time, this relaxation, as you continue to see them through the green lens, builds trust. And what is trust? Well, there are many definitions of trust, Marian, but one of the ones I love to go by is that trust occurs when you see that the other person has your best interest at heart.
I love the definition, in fact, and I think people can feel and sense when you are really interested in them.
Yeah.
Not when you just say, how are you, but you don't have time to listen to how are you. It's like, more of saying it, but really living it. And I think there's, of course, many philosophies and approaches to business, but when you really have someone's best interest at your heart, sometimes people argue, yeah, well, what about if they use you? What about if, does it work? Is it sustainable? There's so many questions, and a lot of people quite rightly finding out, is it scalable? It's just a lot of questions are coming out.
Yes. Well, those questions are normal and natural. Normal because that happens a lot in any system. and natural because people don't have to learn how to ask those questions. They kind of occur naturally. And what's happening is, so I want to take about a 2,000-foot view of what's happening in any system. When you introduce something new, the first thing you're going to hear is all the reasons it won't work. Now, the Buddhists have a term for that. They called it monkey mind, standing for that aspect of the mind that is always chattering at us as it swings from doubt to worry and back to doubt again. And actually, in my work at the academy and in my courses, I have a series of courses on the energy of money to have people transform their relationship with the energy of money. One of the first things we look at is this natural tendency of the brain to say, you don't understand. There really is a tiger outside of that cave. It's not going to work. Let me tell you, we're not living in the 21st century. We're living 100,000 years ago. See, because the brain, it's just the weirdest thing. I've seen this for thousands of people now. For 50 years, the brain still thinks we're back 100,000 years ago. That's its first. So when people say it's not going to work, I don't try to convince them. Very often, what I do in any system is I look for something called the early adopters among the middle managers. These are people who are intrigued and willing to try it. And
Absolutely.
when I give, or one of my colleagues that I've trained, when we give green lens training, because there's a training that goes along with it, it's a little more, has a little more data and examples than I'm able to give you right now. But when you deal with the early adopters and they see it works, then many of the other people in the second tier, which they're not early adopters, but they're willing to become interested in what others are doing. And then, of course, there's a third tier of people who are not interested. They'll never become interested. You can't make them interested. And you just let them be. Just let them be. Yes?
No, this is a really very important, because you'll always be people that will never be convinced. But I think what is important is for the ones who really want to try out and show results. I think the results speak for itself, and that can lead to more adopters. And on that point, we have very interesting questions here from the audience, and one of them is asking, the question is from Angel Gorgodov. Since we have limited cognitive resources during the day, how do we consciously maintain the green lens before the brain slips into the negative conclusions?
Oh, what a great question. Fabulous question. Well, this is the answer, okay? If you want, I will give you a way to install the green lens on your phone.
Please, tell us how for the audience can do that. And
so all you need to do is, you know what? I can maybe even, can I go on to chat? Yes, good. Ace Coach.
We can post it. Yeah, we can post it afterwards for the audience as well.
Okay, Ace Coach training.com/green. That's it. acecoachtraining.com/green. And what this is, it's not a true app. It's really a landing page that looks like an app. But the minute you get it, you'll get something that is it looks like this. Let me see.
Yeah.
Okay.
And what's your suggestion? Just to remind ourselves?
No. So what you do? So what you do is this. It's so simple. It's too easy, okay? All you do before a meeting, go to this app, turn it on, look at the 5 conclusions, read them. That's all you do. Read them.
Just to continuously remind yourself of
You're
what are the
cueing the
green lights.
brain. Yeah, exactly. It's not hard. It's so easy. All you're doing, it's like an eyes open meditation.
Or maybe you can print them on a piece of paper in front of your computer or whatever you.
Oh, people do that a lot. And
okay.
there was one man. I think I told you this story when we were talking earlier. He was the head of a big corporation, and he had these board meetings, and they were always contentious. People were always arguing with each other. But I trained him in how to use the green lens. Well, he opened up his phone to that app. He put it on his lap, and he was in this board meeting. And ever so often in the meeting, he would just glance down and read the green lens conclusions, and then just glance back up, and then glance down again, and then glance back up. Now, at the end of the meeting, one of the people, who usually was very argumentative, came to him and he said, "Jack, this was one of the best meetings we've ever had. What happened?" Now, what happened was that Jack, in using the green lens, was creating an environment within which people could begin to relax. Because you see, and what works even better is if you could have a meeting where, let's say you have a meeting with 10 people and 4 of them are using the green lens. In other words, they're looking at it from time to time. You're going to get different results out of that meeting, if even 4 out of 10. Why? Because I don't want to get too I don't know, magical sounding about this, but there is a kind of an energy that you consciously create when you're looking at people through the green lens, and people can feel that energy.
No, it's a great, definitely a great way to remind, and for Angel, for the audience, try it out. And the best way is just to see how it works for you. And thank you, Maria, for sharing this link and app. We also have another question here from Stoyan. Maria, fantastic podcast.
Please.
Can you share a limiting belief that was really holding you back when you were younger, that you managed to reprogram? How do we transform one into a more empowering one?
Oh, how great. Yes, I had quite a big limiting belief, and it sounded like this: I can't. I just can't. Whenever something came toward me as an opportunity, my first response was, I just can't do it. I can't. Where did that come from? I don't know. But everyone on the face of this planet has at least one limiting belief. I call it your basic assumption. Your basic assumption is a decision you made when you were 18 months to 2 years old about yourself, other people, or the world. And it's either a fight, flight, or freeze comment. And mine is flight. I can't. Now, what did I do? Well, the first thing you need to learn, and I know this is going to sound a little funny, but go along with me, is to become compassionate with your brain. Compassionate with your brain. Your brain still thinks that we're living 100,000 years ago. Really. This is not a metaphor. It really, the brain thinks that we're living in a cave, and it's going to try to look out for you. So a self-limiting belief really is your brain's attempt to keep you from walking outside of the cave in case there's a tiger. So the first thing is, number one, have compassion with your brain. Number two, make friends with your limiting belief. Normally, when your limiting belief comes up, isn't it right when you're about to do something new, unique, or different, when you're about to do something that has a little risk in it, then boom, that limiting belief comes up? Isn't that so? Observe it. Give words to it. Make it very short. I can't. There's something wrong with me. Life is very hard. There's just, what is yours? I don't trust people. That's one. And see what it is and know it for what it truly is. It's not a way to keep you back. It's your brain's way of trying to keep you safe. The minute you shift your conclusion to the one I just gave you, the limiting belief will become a friend. Now, I know that sounds weird, but it will give you evidence that you're about to do something important, new, or different. And you can wave at your limiting belief and keep going. Do we have time for me to?
I would like to also share something on this point, how I approach when limiting belief comes in or doubt comes into my mind. What I tend to do is everybody has doubt or may have a limiting belief in some shape or form, but I like what you shared. Making friends, observe it. It's a great way, so not to be worried or afraid of it, and just observe it. But the other thing that you could do is, when doubt comes in or limiting comes in, belief that shows up, take an immediate action to actually towards the direction of what you believe cannot do, and see whether you can do it. Just take an action. Check
Perfect.
that immediate action, and when you have success, you silence the doubt. You can change your limiting belief by, well, I took an action, it worked out. It's just, it may not work out, which could actually reaffirm what you believe. So that's also a possibility. But by taking an action and not worrying about it, that, okay, well, if maybe work out, maybe not, but let me just try it out. It might not be true, because what you think and believe, you can materialize it and attract it, but also you can silence it. And it depends on really how brave and courageous, and bring other things into your challenge yourself, really. Find a way to do that. And when you achieve success, you will see that you can change this. You can really turn it, or talk to people who have done it, who actually have done what you're looking to do, and see it's not that difficult.
I think that what you said is absolutely brilliant. I often suggest to people, take one small, sweet step toward what it is you're afraid to do, or think you can't do, or doubt. One small, sweet step. Do we have enough time for me to give them one more principle that I use?
Yeah, I would like to. Sure, please. We're advancing quite a lot, but please share that principle. And there's also some final points I want to ask you about your wisdom, and really talk about some of the how the year went, and really how people can evaluate their their year and how they can prepare for the new one. That'll be a great wisdom to hear from you as well, from your experience, since you had a chance to work with many leaders.
Yes. Well, your greatest, I want to give you something that I'm actually writing about in my next newsletter. I have a newsletter that I publish.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dag Hammarskjöld, who was the second Secretary General of the United Nations, Swedish, had something that he lived, that he believed. And it goes like this: for everything that has been in my life, I say thank you. And to all that is yet to be, I say yes. That is one of the most courageous things I've ever heard. For everything in my life, I say thank you. Everything? Yes. Because aren't there some lessons I learned that made me stronger? And now, to all that is yet to be, I say yes. What does that really mean? And I carved out 3 words that I think captures what he means. And I want to give this to you, folks, because I've used it much of my life. And these 3 words are this: I am willing. I am willing. Those 3 words are your superpower, because it has nothing to do with how you feel, what you think, what you believe in the moment. Because you can be willing to do things that you're afraid to do. Yes? You can be willing to do things you don't want to do. You can be willing to do, Marian, what you're doubting about. So for me, 4 words, the final 4 words: nevertheless, I am willing. Nevertheless, folks, means with everything that's coming at me, not making anything less here. Nevertheless, yes. So I sit down to write a newsletter real quick. I have a doubt. Oh, I can't do this. And I say, nevertheless, I'm willing. And at that moment, I have the power to do it. So in the new year, practice not only the green lens, but practice these 4 words. Nevertheless, I am willing. When you come up against a doubt or a fear, something that you know you need to do, but you don't know if you have the power or the capacity, say, nevertheless, I'm willing. And notice the power it gives you. The thing I like to say to people about capturing the new year, I tend to say to folks, don't make New Year's resolutions, because one of the things that happens is after you make a New Year's resolution and then after 90 days, you're not doing it, right? And you feel guilty. And so the guilt keeps you away from doing it anymore. Look at some small, sweet ways that you're willing to be this year. Are you willing to practice generosity? How about compassion? How about being supportive? What qualities are you willing to practice this year? Things that you see other people have. Look at the people you admire. Always, always look at the people you admire and ask yourself, what qualities are they demonstrating? Because I want to leave you with a final thing. Whatever you see in another person is also true about you. Because if you love people who are compassionate, it means you know what compassion is. And that means you have a receptor site for it in your heart. It means you know what it is to be compassionate. You are compassionate. So look at the qualities that people like, Marian. For those of you who have been with Marian on this journey, what are the qualities that you really admire about him, that you appreciate about this individual? Make a list, I always love this. Just make a list of the qualities and endeavor to demonstrate them in your
I-
life.
Is that in addition to setting goals,
Yes,
or
yes. And you know, whatever goals you set, I tell people now set small, sweet goals because we've learned to set huge, fantastic goals and we've gone overboard and it makes people stressed out, doesn't it? Make small, sweet goals that you can accomplish within 90 days. And then after 90 days, make some other small, sweet goals that you can accomplish. Because in the long run, the people who are most successful are not ones who set huge goals. They may have a big vision for what they want in the world, and then small goals about how they're going to attain it. So make sure you're not overwhelming yourself with too much stuff in the new year. And finally, always seek support.
Hmm.
Those of us who've gotten anywhere in life, it's because we've reached out to people and asked for their support. And there's nothing more validating you can do for another person than to ask them to support you.
Maria, I just admire and honor you. You're so active, still in this in your career. And how? What is your advice to leaders who are? I mean, it's so interesting to hear. Obviously, your journey and your you mentioned more than 50 years of
Yes,
active career, and
yes.
then another 20. If you don't mind sharing your journey and how old are you with the audience, and just to say, hey, what is if for listeners or leaders that are listening today, what should they expect in their journey, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, I guess, just thinking of that lifespan, that is, how for them to be like a lifelong active lifestyle, and how leaders could achieve that in the long run.
Well, you know, if you and I had another 3 or 4 hours, I'd be so happy to really go into a deep dive with you about that because there's a lot I have to say. Folks, I am 77. I'm about to be 78 in a month. And it's just a number. It's just a number. In your heart, you are ageless. You are ageless. In your heart, what you want most is to make a difference. And, you know, let me just put in a momentary plug if it's okay. There are people who want to come study with me. And if you do, you can always go to acecoachtraining.com. And there's a course I teach called Mastering Life's Energies, in which I teach a lot of this stuff. But if you never come, look for ways at any age to stay relevant. That is to say, keep up with what's happening, make a difference, see where you can make a difference. The key to youth is seeing where you can contribute and doing it. The people that I follow who left this planet when they were in their 90s, there's a couple people who just did leave this planet last week. One of it's called E.O. His name was E.O. Wilson, just a fabulous scientific thinker. And he was 101 when he passed away. Why? Because he was interested. He never saw age as something that had to govern his behavior. And that would be, if I could leave you with nothing else, just find ways that you can make a difference. Practice the green lens. Practice the 4 words I gave you. Nevertheless, I am willing. And finally, live without regret. Meaning this, okay? whether you're a leader, doesn't matter, for human beings. Is there something you need to do or someone you need to interact with, which, if you didn't, and maybe they passed away, because many of us think about this now with COVID, yes, they passed away, or the situation went failed because you didn't give it something that it needed to have. The worst thing to have in life really is regret. So in the new year, who do I need to interact with? Who do I need to let them know that I care about them? Who do I need to acknowledge for the difference that they make in my life and other people's lives? Look at those questions. Ask yourself once again, is there something I need to do which, if I didn't do it, I'd experience so much regret? And
Maria,
that will keep you young.
thank you so much for all this wisdom that you share. And for those of you who want to learn more, please visit the Academy for Coaching and Excellence. And what the where could they find you, Maria, for the audience that may want to get in touch?
Oh, absolutely. The best is Monica, Monica, at Ace Coach Training. If there's something that you'd like to talk to me about, if there's a question I can answer, and you can always email me. That's a real good way to get in touch with me. Maria at marianemeth.com. That's Maria at Maria Nemeth. You see it here, MariaNemeth.com. Write me.
Great. Maria, thank you for taking the time and really sharing this great insights and wisdom in the Green Lens tool, and also the 4 words that people can practice as well. So really, once again, thank you for joining us, and God bless.
Oh, thank you for having me. Really, you are just the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria.